Welcome, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. In Victoria Findlay Wolfe's book, 15 Minutes of Play, she talks about using made fabric to complete her quilts. I was fascinated by the concept and decided to play with a way to recreate the process of creating your own fabric using Electric Quilt. I've opened Electric Quilt and I'm going to select New Project. And I'm going to label this one Improvisational Fabric. And I will select OK. And to design our improvisational fabric, we're going to go to the block work table. And I'm going to select Draw. And I'm going to select a size that's probably going to be bigger than any patch that's going to be in my quilt. So let's assume my maximum is a 12-inch block. So I'm going to design at a 16 by 16 inch. And I'm going to do a new block, pieced easy draw block. Now the other thing that I want to do is I probably don't want a patch that is greater than let's say maybe 1.5 inches, right? Because if I'm doing fabric and I'm working from scraps, I'm going to assume I don't have super big scraps to work with. So usually when we're doing improv fabric, we're starting from the center and working our way out. However, from a design perspective, we need to start on the outside and work in. For our snapping options, I only want to have snap to lines and arcs on. I'm just going to start by creating segments that are maybe an inch, right? And I'm going to just go along. Now, if I get too large, like that one's too large, I can just break that into 2 segments, right? Because that's how I would potentially piece this. And so, I will continue to do that. And so maybe that's going to be 3 segments. And you can see I am always working from the outside in, and I can break a segment into multiple pieces, but I want to make sure that I'm very conscientious when I do that. Now on this one down here, let me just zoom in, I can see I didn't connect my line, so before I connect up to that point, I'm going to use Edit and just make sure that I'm connecting. Then I will go to the Color tab and I will color this. And I'm going to add that to the project sketchbook. And then I'm going to go to Print and Export and select Export Image. I'm going to navigate to my EQ8 images and I'm going to call this Improv Fabric. And I'm going to select Save. And I could actually change this to my 16 by 16. And in terms of outline patches and outline blocks, I want to turn those off because I want this to look like the actual fabric. And so I'm going to select OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to the image work table, do an import image, and I'm going to find my improv fabric, select Open. Notice that it came in at 16 by 16, which is what I wanted, and I'm going to select Add as Fabric. Now I can go ahead and design my quilt. So I'm going to go to the Quilt work table, do a new quilt, On Point, and for my layout I'm going to select 3 by 3. I'm just going to stay with the 9-inch block, and for the border tab I'm going to start with a 1-inch long horizontal. For border number 2 I'm going to add, and I'm going to make it a 3-inch border. So I'll type in 3, click on the slider bar, And I'm going to make that a big and little points in. And actually I'm going to change the style to big and little points out. And I'll do a 7x7 with that. And then I'm going to go to the Design tab, and I'm going to select Set Block, and I'm going to take that EQ Default Friendship Star, and I'm going to use the Control key and set it in the workspace. And I'm going to use the Control or the Command key and select it in the other space as well. And so now I'm going to go to the Fabric Tools, and I'm going to scroll to the end, which is the fabric that I just created, and I am going to use Swap Color, and I'm going to click on part of the Friendship Star, and then I will use some other fabrics to finish coloring the quilt. Now I also decided to go back to the border, and I'm just going to add a, I'll make it a mitered border for the binding and make that 0.375. And I'll color that with that dark blue as well. The first option in adjusting our fabric is to use fussy cut, which is basically to move the fabric so we can show a different piece of the fabric in the various blocks. The other option is rotate fabric. There are options to rotate each piece of fabric 90 degrees, or you could use the advanced rotation and decide on the angle and the number of rotations. And then once I've got the rotation done, I like to go back and use fussy cut and make every one of my fabric pieces just a little bit different. So really just a combination of rotate and fussy cut. And once I've got all of the fabric placed, I can go ahead and hide show quilt patch lines. To see what it's going to look like, I can make any additional adjustments and then add it to the project sketchbook. Thanks so much for watching. For additional tips and techniques, please subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.onpointquilter.com. And while you are there, check out my other electric quilt training opportunities.